Folks, hello and welcome to Talking Crit. I am one of your hosts, Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. Directly above me, it's a weird layout today. It's gonna get weirder
Mm.
when I disappear behind the screen and become the wizard. But directly above me is none other than Bad Mike Battleato of North Texas RPG Con fame, of my once a week work spouse.
When we moved into
Adjacent,
our forever home, I wanted it furnished with pieces that would last.
is that you, Mike? Is that you? What is it? You find a soundboard?
What?
Jesus.
Oh my
Mary
God.
Joseph. Next to Mike is none other than a one and only. We should do auctions on this channel one day. Uh, Auctioneer extraordinaire Jim Kitchen, and with us from World Game Design is none other than Jared Nielsen. Now that I've made the introductions and shown you your panel, I am going to step behind, and the chat's already going crazy, so I'm going to step behind and leave it to the three of them.
I
So
apologize for
welcome
that.
aboard.
I had another pop up there. I'm sorry, Jim. So
That's all right.
I've shut it off. We're good. We're good now. We're good.
Yes, we're complete amateurs. Jared, thanks for being here. Why don't we start with, why don't you tell the folks in the audience who you are and what your background is in the game industry?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm in the presence of some mega collectors. I can see by the background that you've got stuff I'll never have. But I've been in the industry for a long time. My background comes from back in 1999. I worked with, snuck onto Gary Gygax's porch, and I was afraid to knock on the door. So I put a little napkin that said, "Hey, I'll build you a website if you're interested, and then call me." And so a day later, he called me, and sure enough, I was able to get Gygax.com set up for him and get him on the internet. And that was back when he was a little depressed because he'd been sued and he'd done Dangerous Journeys, and then that got sued. And so he really wasn't working on anything. I think this is before he engaged with Troll Lord Games back in the day. And so that was kind of my genesis of getting started in the game industry, was just launching Gygax.com for a hero of mine.
Okay, and then after that, what were your next steps after that?
Well, I decided I was going to publish a game called Shards of the Stone, and it was the first role-playing game I'd ever written. And so I was working down in Florida for this little .com startup, and so I started surfing. I don't know if you ever heard of IRC. It's kind of like the Discord for the old guys. Internet relay chat. And so I was hanging out on IRC, and I found a couple of game designers, one guy that worked for Champions, and then just some people who are interested, and we formed this little.
I think Jared's frozen on us. There has suddenly been a momentary ice age with Jared, so let's see if things correct.
Oh, I'm not the only one. Thank goodness. I'm the only one this ever happens to.
Let's see.
Nice to know.
You know, the great thing is this gives us a pause to simply say, aren't we all glad the election is behind us?
we will be having our post-election drinking crew after.
Yes, if you've ever wondered what kind of pain a drunken owlbear can go through, we'll be talking about it.
We're going to celebrate the end of yet another horrific election season that just seems to get worse the older I get, Jim.
How can we get 16 years worth of pain in only 4 years? I don't understand it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
So
Come on, Jared.
So please drink with us at probably about 8 o'clock or 8:05 when we have our say goodbye to the election season drink, and thank God it doesn't happen for another 4 years.
Yes.
I got my bottle ready. Hold on.
As you can see, the owlbear voted.
Drink all of it, by the way, folks.
The owlbear voted.
It is Illinois, so we'll take whatever.
I was about to say they didn't ask for ID, did they? They just said, "Oh, okay." Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Although I have a funny story I'll tell later. It's pretty good. So, wherefore art thou, Jared?
Yeah, I don't know. Hold on, let me
I'll pop right back.
Let me ping him on.
Yeah, he just takes a minute or two to pop back. Make sure he's got the link, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, let me re-ping the link.
Yes, it's a banner night, folks. We've allotted an hour to talk with Jared about all things, and then after that, we've got a lot of interesting things to talk about in the second half.
Yeah, our pre-drink coverage looks like most post-election coverage I saw last night. Everybody looking panicked and weird, and that's us right now, looking panicked. Oh, there we go.
He's back.
All right, and I'm out.
My apologies.
That's okay. Welcome back, Jared. So you had done the website. You were getting connected with some folks through IRC. Go from there.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I had published my absolute #1 book. So we had a box of 10 or 15 books. It was a book about this thick. So I pulled out the #1 copy. Everybody got we numbered them 1 through 10. Everybody signed it, and then we embossed them with our corporate seal. And so I had my #1 book of the first book I'd ever published forever. And I walked up to Gary's porch, and I said to him, he was sitting there in the little rotunda gazebo thing he had there. And I said, Gary, I'm really pleased. I was managed to publish my very own book. And he goes, oh, well, let me take a look. So he grabs the book, kind of flips through a couple of pages, looked a little bored, and goes, thanks. And he puts it under his chair.
We've all had those chairs that lean a little, so I understand completely.
And I'm like, I was sitting there like, that's my #1 copy. I wasn't meaning to give it to him, but I didn't have the heart to say anything. So basically, my #1 signed copy of my first book I'd ever published was sacrificed to the Gygax god. So
don't worry, Gail's going to put it in an auction before too long, and you'll have a chance to get it back.
Well, I would like to have it back. I did manage to get the negative side of Gail eventually, as wont to happen, and she was very insistent that we transfer the domain name back to her. And I said, well, Gail, I'm only the technical contact on the domain. I don't own the domain. And she goes, I don't care. It needs to be TriG Enterprises. She got a little upset. I said, well, that's fine. So I transferred it back to her, and sure enough, she didn't know how to renew a domain or didn't maintain it, and then the domain lapsed and turned into a porn site. So
well, there you go. Let's not follow the link.
Okay, well, no,
we will not be sharing the link in chat.
Not typing it. Thank you.
Now it belongs to a Swiss hedge fund manager who's quite accomplished, but that domain's worth probably a couple $100,000, and most people don't know it, but Gygax is Smith in Switzerland. I mean, it's
right.
It's a known name.
So after that, tell us more. Walk us through how you got from there to here. So tell us more.
Well, we had ended up going to Gen Con, and we bought 4 booths at Gen Con in 2001. So it was a long time ago. That's back when they used to have the Nerf wars, where you could actually shoot people after the trade show ended, but before their insurance company stopped all that. There was this roll-up of companies, which included Pinnacle Entertainment Group with Shane Hensley, Arduin Miniatures, Emperor's Choice Miniatures, and the Arduin guys, and all that stuff got rolled up into one big company, and then we exited kind of that way. But that was kind of my first stab at publishing, and my wife decided that we needed to raise some kids, so I took a break for a couple of years. And as soon as I got to my comfortable retirement age, I looked at my wife and I said, you know what's going to happen, right? She goes, yeah, you're going to go start a game company, aren't you? And I said, yeah. So that's how I ended up here. In the intervening years, I did a whole bunch of IT stuff, and I helped a big company called Fanatics launch and become a really giant e-commerce group. And I did some stuff for NASA, and I did some stuff for some oil and gas companies. But my whole break, I was able to build my career and increase my collection, and then it just kind of culminated a couple of years ago where I decided to jump back in, and that's where we started World of Game Design.
So what is the elevator pitch for World of Game Design?
Well, the goal of World of Game Design is to try to accomplish a couple of things that are impossible if not done at scale. So imagine, I mean, our stated goal now is to go to every single trade show that exists. So the question is, how do you pull something like that off? Because they're in all possible different places in every different area. Giant ones that are expensive and unaffordable, little tiny ones that are affordable but not very profitable. And so that's the impossible mission that we're trying to tackle. And the way that we're able to try to tackle that problem is we're basically micro investing in little gamer areas. And so every major city, we're trying to work together with small gaming groups and try to help them go to trade shows and maybe publish a book or run some games. And so that's kind of our mission.
So you say you want to be in every trade show. Does that mean you want to be in every game convention / trade show? Because Gen Con is a trade show.
Yeah.
The New York Toy Fair is a trade show.
Yeah.
But Gen Con is much more of a gaming convention and trade show or gaming convention and exhibitor hall. You were at Gamehole, which is again more of a convention than a trade show. What are your cutoffs? When you say you want to be at everything, that's an incredibly wide scope to try to tackle. That's not a targeted effort. That's a almost scattergun approach. How do you refine that, and how do you qualify where you're going to be with WOGD?
Well, I didn't know going into this that there were those kinds of trade shows. So I ended up at ChupacabraCon. I told my wife, I said, hey, let's go to ChupacabraCon. It's up in San Antonio somewhere. And she's like, well, can I bring some friends? Because they've never been around geeks before. And I said, yeah, come meet my people. So we ended up at ChupacabraCon, and it was just people playing games. There was no trade show component, hardly any vendors. In fact, one of the vendors sold cement sidewalks, and another guy sold insurance because I think they were just like,
anybody who has ever been to a gun show in the United States always knows there's an AMSOIL guy and there's always the one woman with crochet hooks. So yes, I get that.
It's kind of weird.
But you said something about micro investing. Now, are you trying to find investors to back WOGD presence at local conventions? When you use that phrase, what do you mean?
So what we're trying to do is help the little guy sell product at the trade show so they can make some money, run games, and sometimes you can make money running games. Other times it's just stuff you do to generate sales at your booth, and basically try to get new games activated out there. And what we found is a lot of small publishers, they can't afford to go to Gen Con. They can't even afford to split a booth at a Gen Con. But what they can do is afford maybe some product, right? And so we help people print their product, and then we take it to trade shows and try to help generate exposure, generate sales. And then in the process, these little, gaming groups, they can generate a little bit of money. And I'm
sorry, when you say gaming groups, do you mean small publishers? Do you mean collectives of people that are putting on conventions? I need a little bit more of an understanding of the lexicon, because my background with workshop and going to trade shows, my experience with trade shows, these are all very different things. So when you say this, I'm trying to understand what you mean.
Well, there's I guess three main components of a trade show. It's having a booth and selling, printing product and selling product.
But that's a publisher's domain. That's not normally that you're talking about exhibition and sales, but you're also taking on the role of publisher as well.
Well, we can help capitalize a publisher.
I'm sorry, when you say capitalize a publisher, what does that mean?
We can help offset some of the expenses related to publishing. So,
and does that then entail you to an ownership stake in the property that's being published?
No, I mean, we've tried that in the past. That doesn't work very well. What we do now is we just try to assist on the cost side. So if you're doing a print run and we're doing 3 other print runs, we can gang the print run together, and then everybody gets their books cheaper. The shipping is done at the same time. And then we, everybody just kind of saves money, and we save some money.
So are you acting as an agent for a printing company and then wrapping that under WOGD for small publishers to use?
Yeah. And in some cases, we try to buy equipment so we can self-produce certain things. So we had a mold making facility for a while where we were doing prototypes of resin casts miniatures.
Sure.
We've done terrain builds, or we had a whole silicone mold making experiment where we tried to see how that worked. It's a lot of work. In other times, we just broker and do gang print runs. So we just gang stuff together and try to get it going. For example, we're helping Zweihander get their Kickstarter fulfilled.
So how many trade shows how many, I'm going to use conventions, because really and truly, there's only 2 or 3 trade shows that are actually impactable by the hobby games industry. You've got RICTA, which is a very minor presence, the RC toy hobby show. You've got the New York Toy Fair, which is the actual toy market. Mm-hmm. TSR always had a presence there. Games Workshop had a presence there occasionally. There's Spiel and Essen. But in North America, really, we're talking about enthusiast-oriented conventions. So how many of those are you actively demonstrating or showing product as WOGD?
Yeah, so we're doing PAX Unplugged next. We just did Game Hole. We did a fairly big presence at Gen Con. We did Origins this year, but we really like the smaller shows, and so we're also attending NTRPG Con we did this year. We did Fan Expo Dallas. We did New York City Comic Con. So some are big, some are small, but it's kind of a case where if you get 5 people that are having fun and are interested in running some games, and you can get it into New York City Comic Con, and you can.
Sure, but is it even profitable? I mean, is it profitable for you with the overhead expenses associated with going to all of these? And I'll say regional. We tend to use the term regional shows.
Yeah.
Do you have multiple warehouses, or are you going from one warehouse to location, back to warehouse, to location, back to warehouse, to location?
Well, that's the secret, is that we try to position inventory and trade show booth equipment and merchandise and shelving, portable shelving, point of sale equipment in every major metro area. So we don't have to fly inventory across the country. We don't have to move trade show booth equipment. The little gaming group that is in that area, they can run the convention themselves, sometimes a big one.
And do you compensate local groups for storing your materials on site?
Well, we pay for the facilities.
Sure. So
that's on our dime.
Right. I'm puzzled by that, because that creates a lot of different inventory locations with a lot of overhead on top of that.
Yep.
Now I know one of the reasons that you're on the show is that there's been a recent article. I know Mike's going to sort of follow up on this a little bit, but I'm really trying to understand the model. If I'm a small publisher and I want more exposure, the classic route that we see time and time again is that we see small publishers go to local shows, and then they step up to larger shows, and they step up. And frequently now, I'll be the first to say there are a number of publishers that have walked away from Gen Con because Gen Con isn't delivering what they wanted. Yeah. But then, the middle ground, what I would call the middle ground, which is places like Gamehole Con, Gary Con. These are much larger shows, but they are below the seismic hit that is Gen Con.
Right.
You aren't doing a tailored approach. You've decided to land inventory. And if I'm a publisher, don't those landed inventory costs begin to add up for me if I have you showing my product?
Well, every product has to be sold to generate money. Some product turns and some product doesn't turn. And there's a variety of ways that you can help people generate sales for their product. But you're right, it's difficult. In fact, it's extremely difficult. So, you know, we're focused on trying to make sure that is done well. And I can't say we've executed perfectly in that regard for sure. So
and then let me ask one more question before Sir Mike's going to ask some questions about the articles that have been coming out. But if I'm a publisher and I come to WOGD, what is the load cost that I'm going to be paying for you to show my product? What kind of landed inventory cost do I have? Is that at a flat scale rate, or is that negotiated per product? How do you figure this equation?
Well, we've tried a bunch of different models. Some work well, some are a lot more challenging. I'll tell you what I found is, when you do a Kickstarter and you're a niche publisher that doesn't have a good retail presence or convention presence, your Kickstarter generates revenue. You overprint by X number of copies, and then those copies just kind of sit there. And that's
an inventory management issue. And almost all publishers,
all
publishers end up with inventory overruns.
Well, what I'm saying is, and you know, Mike is a great example of this. Remember, Mike, you had a whole bunch of Judges Guild product.
Still do.
Right?
Yep.
I know. He's got warehouses and warehouses of it. And back, how many years ago was it? 5 years ago?
It was farther than that, I think. 2018, 17. No, maybe not that far. Yeah, it was bad.
That was the problem. He was sitting there with a bunch of Judges Guild, and I said, well, let's come up with an idea. And so I came up with an idea of doing a monthly subscription crate where we would push product out instead of selling product. And that's how we were able to stimulate the sales of Judges Guild books, because everyone likes old collectible Judges Guild. So Mike was kind enough to support us by selling us inventory at a discounted rate. And I think at the time you were eager to get some space cleared out of your garage anyway.
Absolutely. I still have some things, but my collection of titles like Lay Sector and Tenkar are legendary. We're talking over.
Let me go back to something, because this is a question I would have as a publisher. Do you keep the material? I mean,
let me get to the answer to your question, which is what we do now is we take product as payment, because that's a currency. That's a currency that a publisher, you can either let it sit in your warehouse and rot, or you can get that product working for you. Now, we've tried a bunch of different models in the past, but I really think that's the one that works the best, because what am I doing? I'm solving a problem for the publisher, which is getting rid of excess stock. I'm helping to turn that into, I tell people it's movie popcorn. You can buy popcorn at Walmart for 50 cents, but you can buy popcorn at a movie theater for $10. And it's the exact same popcorn, right? So if you take the product out of your garage and you take it to a convention, you can sell your product for movie popcorn prices, and there's plenty of margin there. If you try to sell the same product on Amazon, it's discounted and it's not worth doing.
But I want to ask a couple questions about inventory. You've got landed inventory in different locations.
Yep.
Are you keeping them in climate control storage facilities? Are you having local groups on the ground keep these for you? Like, help me get my head through this, because paper inventory, if not stored correctly, if not stored appropriately, you're going to begin having a lot more damaged inventory.
Yeah, we have a national contract with Extra Space Storage, and it's all climate controlled. Usually second floor, because we don't like being on the first floor. First floor has, if they have a cement floor, the moisture still seeps through cement pads on first floor buildings. So we keep our inventory on the second floor. I mean, these are nice facilities. They're elevator secured, and you know, the nice thing is it's flex storage. So if we need more, we can expand it, and if we need less, we can contract it, and it's month to month. So it's pretty
okay.
So Mike, let's kick off the conversation about some recent articles.
So obviously, you know, I mean, it's great to have you on the show, but obviously one of the reasons you're on the show is that recently there was an article published from Rascal that basically I had several accusations from ex-employees of yours about lack of compensation, not being paid late, stock that was not shipped back after people asked to get shipped back. It took months to come back. There was quite a few accusations that were laid forth in this article. we independently talked to several people. Actually, a lot of them contacted us after Eric posted a stream about it, and contacted us just to let us know here's what our side of the story is. Sure. And so I mean, really, that I just wanted to talk on that because really, honestly, a lot of them were very compelling, and they told basically the same story in the Rascal article. I mean, there wasn't it wasn't like they tried to embellish it or anything. It wasn't like they were out to get you. Jared, is more like, look, here's the issues I had. I mean, you're aware of this. What did you have? I mean, what is your explanation for? I mean, are all these people lying, or is this just a communications issue? I mean, what's going on here?
No, so we do have some clients that have asked to terminate their agreements, and so we're working with them to get that done. I will say it's a little bit of a race condition in that we've got more activity around that because of the Rascal article. And so we're working our best. I mean, not everybody's going to be happy when you tell them, hey, I can't do all this at once. You got to take a number and we're going to work each one of these individually. So, we cleaned out Spicy Tuna, got all his stuff back. And it was a lot of the mothership guys that were, we had some employees with the company that had left, and they were really good friends with their mothership guys. I even talked to one, and he said, well, I want to go ahead and move my product somewhere else. And I said, is it related to this? And he goes, look, I'll just be honest with you. I'm friends with the people that are leaving, so I'm going to go with them. And I said, that's cool. So there's not much you can do about that other than, there is a case in some of those where we need to make sure they get their inventory back. We need to make sure that we count the inventory that got sold. The commissions are current, but we had a situation that really caused the whole ruckus, which is we had managed our inventory electronically through our Shopify system, and any sale we made at a convention was tracked, and we could pay commissions on. Any sale that was, mail order or through our website, we could track, and commissions were paid on those. But some of the smaller publishers were having our team put product as a cross sell in other people's Kickstarters, and that inventory was not being tracked electronically. And so we launched this mobile app that would allow you to see full transparently into your inventory counts. And the number, I didn't QA it properly, which is my fault. But I didn't check the data that was being put out on this mobile app. And so it was under-reporting the inventory. And some of the publishers are like, hey, I sent you 100 books. It only says I've got 10 left. What the heck?
I was going to say, so yeah, I was just going to say, so because one of the accusations that people have posted, and they posted this on Twitter and some other venues, social venues, is that they are behind in consignment sales. Some over, they say several months, and there's actually some people are saying they haven't been paid longer than that. So that you're saying this is just an inventory issue, a paperwork type of thing, or I mean, it's just
no, it's a problem. I went to them and I said, look, this is the problem. I have to go forensically figure out how many products got stuffed into Kickstarter boxes on other people's Kickstarters, and that data is not readily available to me in an easy way. You can't just pull a report. You have to go in and dig. And so basically, what I told them is, look, I'll pay you commissions on what we know, and I'll return the books that we have so that you're made square that, because other people had future Kickstarters they wanted to get launched. And so we're getting everyone's inventory returned back to them that wants it back.
Well, I guess, why is it taking so long, Jared? I mean, look, I know it's like running a business, and and obviously shipping every day, but you have some people that talk to us, anonymously, that sent us notices that said, look, this is stuff that's been going on since the beginning of the year. We haven't got our stock back. I mean, is there a reason it's taking that long to get the stock back to these people?
And there's also people who are saying that these deals haven't been settled since 2021. Is that the case?
No, that's not the case.
Okay. And do you have anybody that hasn't been paid?
I'm fairly cognizant of who that might be, but no, that's not true. So
okay,
so what are your issues? Do you have is this a manpower issue? I'm sorry, we didn't mean to gang up on you there, but is this a manpower issue that you can't get the stock set back, or is it what seems to be the issue here?
So the team that was doing all this, that were servicing their friend network with these Kickstarter insertions, they left right before peak convention season hit, which was, we had invested quite a bit of resources in having 16 booths at Origins. We had a giant presence at Gen Con, where we took 60 game masters to Gen Con. And we had convention after convention after convention in the summer peak season. And so that's where we got behind, is we were servicing so many conventions and our staff was basically cut in half. And so that's where we kind of pled the mercy of the court there and said, look, I got to get my conventions handled. I got to get through convention season, and we'll try to get current on all the commissions, but the inventory is going to take some time because we had to go find it out. And so several people weren't happy to wait. And those are the ones you see venting publicly. Many of them are just really cool and have said, look, it sucks. It's not a great situation. Even some that said, I don't have a lot of empathy for you, but we're willing to wait. And those people we've tried to, make good with them.
Yeah, so, but and obviously you see their side. I mean, look, you want to make money off your stock, and you're not selling it at World of Game Design booths anymore, but it's just sitting in a warehouse. Yeah, that after a while you're like, okay, it's been 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. I need to get my stock to make money. I mean, you obviously understand that, right? That's that's an issue you're aware of.
That's the challenge with having multiple warehouses, right? It's not as simple as going into the garage and putting stuff in a box. What you have to do is go to 9 to 10 different locations, count it, box it up, ship it back, and have the manpower to do that. And no question, it's been a struggle for us.
So how do you ramp up for? I'm sorry, how do you ramp up for local conventions? Because I interacted with some of the WOGD people at GameholeCon.
Yep.
Are you hiring people who don't have experience in the game industry simply to be booth reps? How are you ramping up to meet all the demand for staff at all these conventions across the U.S.? Do you have a dedicated crew that's traveling, or are you just trying to recruit locally? How does that work?
Did you have a good experience with the guys at Gamehole?
I'm refraining from commentary. Okay. I'm just trying to understand.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand the model, because if you're trying to put a physical presence in all these different shows all around the country, and you're trying to ramp up, I guess the question really does come down to, my experience has been you have to have subject matter experts in a booth. They have to be able to talk to the product. They have to be able to show the product. They have to be able to put it in their hand, tell them it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and show them it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Right. And the question that has come up several times is there are people who are representing that they are owed money, and that they are owed back wages. And I don't know if you want to comment on that or not. There's the comments about inventory and wanting to have returned inventory, and that this has taken an extraordinary amount of time. And I'm trying to understand all of that. But one of the questions that really I came into this wanting to ask you is, do you have people who are gamers who are in the booths, or are you hiring outside? I mean, you use the phrase geek, and I don't like that phrase. I try to avoid that phrase. It's almost a pejorative. I'm much more enthusiastic about gaming enthusiasts, right, who do play. So are you hiring outside the community to rep the booths?
Well, I'm a computer guy, and geek is a badge of honor for us, but that's a different industry, and I probably am not using it in the right way for you. So I apologize. I wasn't trying to use it as a pejorative. In the computer industry, that's actually a compliment. So, but yeah, our goal is to give gamers opportunities to do things that they might not be able to experience any other way. And I will say that some of the people that I work with are the absolute kindest, most eager people, that they love playing role-playing games, and the fact that they get to go to a tournament just lights them on fire, and they just have the best time ever. We've brought people that one needed a walker, and we made sure that he had transportation, and we accommodated him. We've had every walk of life, creed, race, gender, anything. And it's really a lot of fun. But I will say, when you take 100 game masters to a show, there's always going to be someone who's less than excited about their experience. But
well,
one of the
go ahead.
Let me just throw something out. One of the things that when you marry an accountant, one of the things that you discover is that inventory matters.
Oh yeah.
And so the question of inventory and what you have in inventory and so forth, this is stuff that's solved by actually doing physical counts at every location and tabulating the results in Excel. And this gives you answers. This is how you tell good inventory from bad. This is how you tell what you have that's shippable, what you have that's not shippable, what's going to be defective, et cetera, et cetera. When you say that before con season, you were starting to do inventories, con season's over. And con season, I mean, if we all say that it kicks off in the spring, that's roughly 8 months. 8 months to do physical inventories of all of these locations to try to get your head around it. This is the problem that Target faced in Canada. Their inventory counts were horribly wrong. The data that they were getting from the computer was bad. Their cycle counts were off. And so when I see people talking about delays in receiving returned inventory, when I see that there's 3/4 worth of time that's passed before. We've lost Jared for a minute.
You were on a roll there, Jim. Sorry.
I don't know if I was on a roll.
He may have a bad internet connection. We shall give him a few minutes to reappear.
Well, look, the chat's really lively. Thanks a lot, guys. We really appreciate
you. We are and let me say that we are seeing the chat because of the nature of the conversation. Yeah. We haven't had the chat go live. We are seeing the things.
Jared's back.
There we go. Sorry about that. So let me finish my follow. Let me finish up on this question. Inventory is critical. And managing inventory is critical. And there's no way that you can tell what you have as far as goods without actually going out with a clipboard, a pen, getting dirty and counting inventory. And I don't know how many sites that you're operating, how many separate warehouse sites you're operating, but this is something that you knock out in a few weeks, not something that needs to drag on for as many months. Is that a fair statement?
Well, we're still in convention season. We just finished a game hole. We're headed to PAX Unplugged. It hasn't stopped yet. I'm not using that as an excuse, but I'm saying that when your staff is cut in half and your obligations to go to trade shows was not reduced, it was really, really difficult. I'm not asking for any empathy. I'm just that's how I got behind, and I guess if I were to give any statement about that, I'm still here. We're working through each issue as we can, and I know we're in it's kind of a race condition where you can't make everybody happy. So what you have to do is identify the first person, get them sorted out, do the next person, get them sorted out, and get through the mix.
So Jared, saying what you're saying, so you're saying you're working on this problem. This is a problem that can be solved. You just need to get the inventory, get shipped. Do you see a point in the future? And I don't really want to ask you when you think this might be solved, but do you see a point in the future where you are going to be caught up? You're going to have the payments paid out. You're going to have all the inventory in people's hands. I mean, is this something next few months, next year, calendar year 2025? I mean, ballpark, do you think you're going to be able to get this solved soon?
Yeah. I mean, we think we're on the cusp of it now. So it's going to take probably another 30, 45 days. But, we're working hard. And we've handled most of the big ones that were the most challenging, that had imminent Kickstarters that needed their product. We prioritized them and made sure that they had their stuff so that we weren't getting in the way of someone doing a previous Kickstarter. But it's at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. So I guess there's a situation where people would leave a mess, and there's people who will clean up a mess, and I'm cleaning up a mess. So I'm not proud of it. But I will say, and I take your point on inventory. We have done a lot of effort and a lot of investment in software that will help us manage our inventory better. And so our inventory is counted now, and it is fully electronic now, and we know where our product is. But that doesn't fix the past. There's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is move forward. I would also further point out that I'm not an expert in warehouse management. I'm not an expert in publishing role-playing games. I'm a small business that happens to be run by an old guy. And, I got things I got to learn. If you dig into the formative years of any startup, you're going to find all sorts of, mistakes and errors and things like that. It doesn't excuse them. It just means that nothing's perfect in its execution. And I'm doing my best.
I think
let me ask one thing real quick, Joe. I just want to follow up real quick. So, somebody pointed out on the chat that we're getting here, and I think it's a good question to ask. Do you have any clients that are absolutely satisfied enough to where they would go on record saying, I dealt with World Game Design, great experience, sold a lot of my stuff, had some great follow-up stuff, people were buying my game. Is there anybody's name you could give us like that? I mean, or anybody you've talked to that just said, you know what, don't listen to these people because you're doing a great job and everything is absolutely okay on my end?
Yeah, you're welcome to talk to the Zweihander guys. Here's the problem. You've got people who are firebombing online right now. So if I came to you and I said, Mike, I'd like to drag your name into this mix, what would you say?
Sure. I understand what you're saying, but you also understand that, I mean, like you just said, you're responsible for a little bit of this. You're taking responsibility, it appears to me, and that you're saying that this is something you need to clear up. But I'm just saying, I helped co-run a convention. If I had a bunch of people that popped up online and were like, hey, this is a terrible convention. It's run awful. It's, the experience is awful. I would point them to say, well, look, I'm going to point you to this special guest and this guy over here, this guy over here. They said they had a great time. And by the way, for the record, we haven't had anybody do that. But if somebody did, I would say, look, I can counter that. You can talk to all these people here. Just email them, text them, talk on Facebook. They'll tell you this is a great convention. We're having a great time. And that's what I'm just looking at. I'm like, is there somebody that we can say, hey, this is absolutely, look, we got all our consignment payments on time. We got all our inventory back on time. It just seems like those people aren't popping up, Jared, that are just really like, hey, it was a great experience.
I'm of the belief that if someone wants to vouch for me, they're welcome to do that. What I don't want to do is direct any arrows away from me. You're welcome to shoot me with the arrows. I'm happy to deal with that.
So Jared, a couple of things occur to me, right? So I worked for a startup for a while, and I understand the startup atmosphere and so on. So when did WOGD kick off?
2021.
Sure. So you've roughly been in business for 3 years.
Yeah, we're fair.
And it seems to me that a lot of this is like almost sort of a sideshow at a circus where I see somebody spinning a number of plates on sticks. And the idea is that you keep all the plates spinning to keep these on the sticks. I've heard you say tonight that you work as almost sort of a bundler / agent for a printing company for small publishers that want to be printed. You're talking about wanting to have a presence at most game conventions in North America that, and you haven't said it, but I'll say it, above a certain bar. You said everyone. I know that's not possible. That's just not possible. But you want a presence you want a booth at every show where you, in theory, can make profit selling the inventory that you've got. You're also acting as a distribution sales agent for small publishers that sign up with WOGD. And I have no semblance of what is in those contracts. You're obviously taking care of inventory, but you've complicated your inventory immeasurably by having all of these different site locations around the United States. And whatever your contract may be, you now have inventory that's not only out of your hands, but that inventory loses value with every month as the inventory as the landing costs increase.
Yep.
And those don't decrease, they only increase. And so
but take a scenario where someone does a Kickstarter and they end up with excess inventory, right? It's not like I print 1,000 books, I put it into retail, I only sell 500, and then the rest of the books lose value. It's a case where you took books to a Kickstarter, which is a different market segment, and now you had never given a retailer a chance to even try or buy or be interested in your product. And if they were presented with that opportunity to try it, they might, right? And you also haven't gone to a convention and presented those books to convention goers who are always looking for something niche and interesting that's not D&D, that's not Magic, that isn't Warhammer. And so I would say to you that if you are a Kickstarter one and done company, you haven't given the other two market segments a chance to experience your product. So I would suggest that because those are virgin markets for your product, that your product doesn't languish in inventory. It needs to be worked into and get exposed to the convention circuit and to the retail market.
But that also goes against the fundamental flow of what Kickstarter is. You know, the small publishers that use Kickstarter as the medium for both crowdfunding are also piggybacking on the number one source of advertising a crowdfunded project in the world.
Sure.
There are others, but Kickstarter is the big one. And when you lose 15% of the funds raised on Kickstarter,
27 million free advertisements in any Kickstarter. That's how big the reach of Kickstarter is.
That's right. But the point of that is that it also bypasses retail.
No,
it bypasses the distributor model completely.
It doesn't. That's a myth.
I can tell you for a fact that yes, retailers do take Kickstarter projects. They certainly don't take them in the kinds of numbers that they did.
What I'm telling you is there's about 80 retailers who are active and they bid on Kickstarters and they bring in Kickstarter product and they put it in their stores. That is true. And Kickstarter kind of sucks a little of the oxygen out of the room for those guys. But I can assure you that there are thousands of retailers, maybe not thousands, but a lot, that have no idea of Kickstarter. They don't even care. They just wake up in the morning.
I disagree wholeheartedly, and I've probably been to, my last count was over 1,500 game stores in the last 25 years, 30 years. And I'm very aware, I can tell you that game retailers in the United States are absolutely under the gun. They know these things forwards and backwards. Like I don't want to get in the weeds on this because I can tell you I'm speaking from a fairly informed place.
But I want to ask you about. There's retailers that have never experienced a product, even regardless of whether it's been on Kickstarter or not.
Let me ask you a different question. With projects that you handle for publishing for small publishers, when they give you funds, are you holding those in escrow that they're solely assigned to those projects?
Yeah, but we don't do that anymore. We don't take funds we don't take funds and then do someone's Kickstarter. The only times we do that are for our own internally Kickstarted projects. Right. What we do is if you want us to support your Kickstarter, we will help you with your Kickstarter. We will receive product and ship out your product for your Kickstarter. But the entire purpose of that is that then we have inventory that we can then take to conventions and take to retailers, which is something it's money they're not making because they don't have the means to go to retail stores and they don't have the means to go to trade shows unless someone's going to help them and sponsor them.
And I guess the question then really comes back for publishers: is the cost worth it as far as the inventory and so on? And your model is to try to help them relieve stress from inventory or excess inventory they have. You're trying to also present this to audiences that you're not certain that they're actually reaching by going to all these different shows.
Right.
What is your plan for 2025? Like, do you have a hard target number of how many conventions that you're going to be at? Are you looking at convention attendance to identify the top tier targets? What's your We're wrapping up 2024. What are your plans for 2025?
Well, last year we attended, I think, over 30 events, and our target this year is to be at 60 events.
Right.
So it's, last year we had 2 metro areas activated. This year we have, 13 metro areas activated.
Does it seem like a great idea, Jared? If you're having issues now, isn't increasing the amount of paperwork and inventory and places you're going to go, isn't that going to put more of a strain on what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm getting really depressed, man. You're harshing my buzz now.
I think the problem. I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to talk honestly to all.
No, that's fair. That's fair. It boils down to, can I learn lessons from mistakes that I've made, right? Can I make sure I can't make people hate me, right? But what I can do is make sure.
I don't think. Let's not assign any of that emotional thing. This is a discussion about hard economics, not internet warble garble.
What I'm saying is, whatever problems that we've have or caused in the past, we are squaring that up, and we're focusing on getting anything that's remaining, straightened out. But the valid question is, what do we do going forward? I mean, all we can do is do our best and learn from, the past. It's not even learning from your past mistakes, that helps too, but learning what works and what doesn't work, right? And, doing a Pareto chart and figuring out what the risks are and whether those risks are worth taking. That's something that I take very personally, and we try really hard. And we have a crew of people that are really, really anxious to make sure that the execution is done much better this year than we've done last year. And
let me throw something out, right? Anybody who has dealt with Six Sigma, anybody who has touched lean, anybody who has dealt with all of these things will tell you, you are proposing literally more than doubling the number of conventions that you are going to be attending in a single calendar year. Your prior years have encountered what I will simply use as the word difficulties.
I wouldn't say that about this last year has been problematic. I agree.
All right. So we'll just keep it to one calendar year where you have had hiccups in your process.
Yeah, I agree. But the prior years, we were growing.
All right. We're not talking about prior years. We're talking about 2024 versus your plan for 2025.
Yeah.
And let me say this, right? Like, the very best people I have ever worked with at 3M, at Rivian, at Microsoft, they will tell you, you don't make progress up a ladder by taking giant leaps. You make incremental steps. You identify regions. You move into regional shows. I haven't heard you discuss Dragon Con. I haven't heard you discuss any of the West Coast cons that come to mind, but I don't want to micro into that. My point is that after having encountered some issues in this past year, you are now looking at 2025 and you're telling me, well, this is what we're thinking of doing. And that's great. I'm all for ambition. I'm all for ambition. And I'm all for small publishers being seen in a way that they may not be seen before. But what I absolutely think that anybody who watches this wants to hear is that all of your plans for expansion, all of your plans for growth are deeply seated in some realistic numbers, as well as incremental growth versus setting yourself up for bigger issues than what you've already encountered in 2020.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Jim here. This sounds like train wreck on the tracks. If you don't get, if you can't get the stuff now, you said you probably would have all this backup stuff solved in the next 30 to 45 days. Well, that's gets you into January and conventions start. If by some reason you don't have that solved by then, you're just going to get farther and farther behind. At least that's what I see. I've done inventory before. I've done things like that, and if you get behind the 8 ball, it's really hard to get out, and especially if you've got twice as many projects in the year ahead than you have this year.
Well, that's good advice. So we'll trim our convention schedule. I mean,
I'm going to stop you real quick because one of the things that I'm hearing is that you haven't even really identified the top tier conventions that you absolutely need to be in.
What do you mean?
And when we started talking, you talked about we're going to be in all these conventions.
I
know that's not possible.
I gave you the list of the conventions.
Yeah, but also too, in talking about it, you've got these plans like you want to be in 50 shows next year. I'd be really curious what those 50 shows are. I'd be curious to know what the shows are that you haven't attended. Now I mentioned DragonCon, and DragonCon is gigantic, but every region of the United States has regional shows with more than 1,500, 2,000, 5,000 people in attendance that are established, decade-long shows.
Yeah.
That are the ones that you absolutely have to be at, and you should be able to whip those off as your secure targets. You have to have landed inventory that is never more than 8 hours away from where you're going to be wanting to be in a show.
So I gave you that list of shows. Is that what you're talking about? The list of shows?
No, you pie in the sky did, but really and truly,
those are shows we attended.
No, I know the shows you attended, but you told me you want to go to 50. And I'm saying that's great.
I'm gonna take your advice, and we will trim our show schedule.
Well, I mean, it's not taking your advice.
No, that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying
it's just that we wanted to know what your. I guess we want to know what your plan is, because this sounds like a kind of an expansion that I wouldn't think about doing. But I mean, if you think you could do it, why do you think you can suddenly do this?
I have no problem taking advice from people that are wise, and I think you guys are correct. So
I'm not going to say I'm wise. My point simply is, what was your total number of shows for 2024?
Let me ask you a question. The message you're communicating to me is, hey, get right with what you got. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to get right with what you've got, and then if you want growth, it needs to be organic, sustainable, positive growth that sees a direct benefit to the bottom line. When you pie in the sky and you tell me I'm going to 50 versus how many shows did you go to in 2024?
30.
You're adding a level of complication. You're magnifying the level of complication with what you're trying to do in a manner that is going to create undoubtedly more problems. Well, and I say that not because I'm upset with your business plan, or I think
it's okay. I'm going to learn online in public. So let's take your advice right now. Keep in mind that 2 years ago, I was in a situation where I'd only done 14 shows and they were executed well, right? And we increased our show count because we were executing well. And then that is where the wheel came off the van. Right?
Well, maybe that's your baseline then. Maybe you think about making sure that, 14 shows, maybe you make sure that 20 shows are going to go with no problems before you think about advancing to 50 or.
So we're down to a couple of minutes. So let me just throw something out, right? WOGD is a lot of things. There's a lot of plates on sticks with WOGD.
Yeah.
And I think 2024's problems aside, one of the things that I think we wanted to suggest is that the areas that are the most profitable, and I'm sorry, but having done all this stuff, I know that every person you have running games costs you money. And every time you sell something in the booth, you make money.
Right.
And so I know that what you want is you have to have enough in sales at a booth to cover the hotel costs, to cover the feeding costs, to cover the booth space. And you have to have that, or the entire thing falls in like a house of cards. Yeah, the game distribution, the game presentation, the demo games, all the rest of it, you've got to be able to sell enough product to keep the roof over your head and the lights on in the house. And so going to a larger number of conventions, or having a stated goal of these are our costs and we have to sell at least this much more above those costs, that's what's going to carry you into 2025 and carry you through 2025.
So let's run a quick number on a trade show, right? Let's just say it's a small NTRPG con, right?
Yep.
And the hotels, what, Mike? It's around $200 a night.
Sure.
Got it.
So you've got $1,000 in hotel costs,
right?
At least $1,000, probably closer to $1,200 in hotel costs.
And I've got
plus
a local,
another.
and I've got a local. I got a local city rep who lives in Dallas, and he doesn't need a hotel. Does that change? Does it change your financial analysis of that show at all?
No, because you still have to pay him for his time. You still have to pay him for per diem
You'd
for
have,
food.
You'd have to do that anyway, and his hotel, right? So
that's right. But those are all loaded costs that are on the front end of the transaction.
But what you have done is you now removed $1,000 from the cost basis of the show because you don't need a hotel.
No, you haven't, because you still have to make that money for booth space.
I get it.
And just because you're trying to take advantage because you found a local rep and you won't have the hotel cost, you're still going to have the hourly wage rate.
That's not taking advantage of a person. That is helping a person who's local to make sure that they can attend a trade show, and it also reduces the cost basis of the show so that the net profit on the show can even be possible. Most trade shows that you go to, or most conventions, you don't make a dime because you have to pay for flights and you have to pay for hotels. Those are the two ginormous expenses that have to be mitigated if you're going to be profitable at a show. So the local city rep program is what solves that problem. And it is effective because now everyone who that can actually manage and administer a show, that is a gamer, that's qualified to be able to demo those products, is now in a position where they can have a profitable experience at a show that everyone else is not going to make a profit on.
Then let me ask you a couple of key questions here.
Sure.
How much are you compensating a local rep for doing a show? Are you compensating them per day or as a contracted rate for the entire show?
So a typical, let's take a GM volunteer, for example. A typical GM volunteer in the past, I can tell you what we paid in the past. And again, every show is different. Every negotiation is different. So this isn't a boilerplate that we use all year. But a good example is Gen Con, where we paid them their hotel, the quarter hotel share. We paid, if we didn't pay for a flight, we paid them in cash. And then everybody got a bonus of a couple $100, plus they got a couple $100 of GM swag. So if you take a general publisher who says, hey, I'll pay you $15 an hour, I'll get you a badge, but that's it. A lot of publishers do that. They'll pay $15 an hour and a badge. And that's a base.
Do you run felony background checks on everybody that's demonstrating your product or working your booth?
No, I don't have a comment on that.
That's a issue that you probably should look into.
That's a gigantic issue.
Jared.
Well, I have no comment on that.
I understand, and legally you probably can't. But so we're going to wrap this up here. Eric, is there anything you wanted to say when we wrap? I mean, we could probably talk a while, but we're kind of running in circles at this point. So Eric,
let me recap though.
Yeah,
I'm very grateful for the advice. I'm not just blowing wind here. I really respect you guys, and I will take a deep introspective look. I will peel back my convention schedule. I'm not trying to just. I agree with your advice.
And look, I wouldn't. You don't need to do this because we told you to, Jared.
No, I think
this is something you need to think about doing because like I said, I would get everything. Look, I've been running a business for 30. I worked for my whole life, but for 30 years I've been running an online business, and sometimes I get a little too far, and I'm like, I need to pull it back because I can't fill these orders by myself. I'm too successful. Let's put it that way. I'm getting too successful. I can't fill these orders. It just seems to me that this is just advice 101. You need to pull this back before it gets really out of control. I mean, it's already bad enough if you have all these ex-employees or run employees.
But I think that's great advice, and don't be mad at me if I follow it. So.
I'm just really going to encourage you that if you have anybody that is working with the public doing game demonstrations, you absolutely need to do felony background checks. And I am encouraging you that as a liability concern.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
Eric, do you want to do anything?
Listen, I was busy keeping an eye on the chat. It's one of the most lively chats we've had. So I appreciate everybody throwing out the questions and comments and observations, and the side conversation about Bad Mike, which I'm not even going to touch because it was interesting. Mike, I don't even know what you're doing right now. Are you
Mike, kill your mic?
Okay, sorry.
God help me.
Anyway,
Jared, thank you for joining us. I do appreciate it. Like I said, I knew it was going to be an active chat. I was trying to keep an eye on things from beyond screen.
So professional. So professional.
Yeah, well, Mike, that's why you're my once-a-week work spouse.
Just once a week. That's why. Yeah, I was absolutely.
So at this point, we are going to jump into our usual game of horrors of this week in Gaming Stupid and covering some conventions that are coming up. But again, Jared, I want to thank you. I do appreciate.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We really do appreciate it, and I'm glad you suggested you come on and talk about this. So,
well, I really welcome the advice, and Jim, I really respect what you're telling me, and I will definitely take that all into consideration and see if I can do a better job. So I really appreciate it.
No worries.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
All right. Good night, Jared. Where did Mike go again?
I don't know. I think he's hiding.
He's hiding with the.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I believe there was some sort of seismic political event yesterday.
There might have been. Hold on.
Yeah, hold on. Wait a minute. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Oh no, I gotta pop it open.
Anyway, so if you can't see, I do want you to know that my owlbear voted yesterday.
Hey, wait a second. Is your owlbear Canadian?
No, my owlbear is not. He's a full-blown naturalized American owlbear. He's an American owlbear, and he is naturalized.
Owlbear?
Naturalized. So anyway, we're not going to get into the politics. Dear God, please don't think that we're going to get into any discussion about politics.
No.
I think what we would all say is that it's just been great having a 16-year election cycle over the last 8 months. And gosh, aren't we all glad that we are now through this?
No more annoying ads on TV.
That's right.
Ruining my football games. It's the only time I watch commercial TV. No more phone ringing constantly telling me to vote for this or vote for this person.
Oh God! The TV ads are the worst. Well, hold on. Let me. Sorry, guys. I had to take a bladder break, and I almost pulled a police squad and had my mic on in the bathroom, which is why thank God you guys caught me.
Nicely played. Nicely played.
You know what? Even Joe hasn't done that, and I would expect.
Well, I would expect Joe to have done that.
Just
say weird.
Let me just say we're done. It's over. Now, I don't care where you were on these things. Please be nice to each other. Please be considerate to each other. We're not going to get into politics on this show. We're not going to get into politics on the comments.
We're
just dear God, remember that there's plenty of room at your tables. Be decent.
So we're going to celebrate the end of election cycle with a drink here. Thank God it's over. Oh, yes.
Oh, my God.
To November 6th. To victory and defeat.
Yes, over. 4 years not having to deal with this shit. Yes, definitely.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, my God.
Oh, God.
So, in other news, it's been a banner week for RPGs and RPG-related things. I kicked off my top secret game that I've inflicted on a few people.
Well, talk to us about this, Jim.
Well, I haven't run a top secret game in forever, and I got conned. I'm sorry. I got my arm twisted. Excuse me. I volunteered to run an online game of top secret, and so we kicked that off on Monday night, and nobody died, but they didn't get into any combat. But let me just say,
wait. First of all, Jim, is this set in modern times? Is it set in the 80s?
Set in 1979.
There we go. Yes, the Cold War.
We denied everybody cell phones. We denied everybody computers.
Cold War's the best. Yes,
that's right. So I love Merle a lot. Merle Rasmussen is an unbelievably great guy. I've been in some of his top secret games at cons. If you have a chance, you got to play with the administrator. It's great.
Legos.
But there's not enough alcohol that the three of us collectively own that will ever make me want to use the top secret combat system. It's dreadful and painful.
Do you remember having to have a calculator at the table? A calculator at the table, because there's so many numbers you're adding them as you're trying to fire one shot into a crowded room in the dark, 500 yards away, with your 357 Magnum as your left arm is hurt, and you're just like, oh my god.
And what I would say about it is that it is, when we get to combat, we're not going to be using the top secret combat system, because Merle wrote a great spy game. He did. He wrote a great spy game. But my God, the combat makes toddlers cry at 6 blocks. Like, it's just that painful. And
grown men cry.
I look forward to the hate. I'm sorry. I look forward to your hate mail.
Well, you get some from Bill Barsh, because I had the same argument with Bill Barsh years ago. He loves the combat system. And I say, you're
high.
Sir, you have been partaking of the wacky weed, because it is a horrific. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So the party is a CIA. It's a task force put together by the CIA to investigate. The American embassy in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, was attacked by a mob, which essentially seems to have been the tip-off signal for a number of attacks on CIA assets around Kuala Lumpur, as well as embassy staff. There were fatalities.
Interesting.
And those attacks triggered similar attacks on our intelligence partners in Singapore. So agents from Australia, New Zealand, UK, and the US are ANZAC partners, or not ANZAC, but anyway. So the party is there's a FBI forensics team that got to Kuala Lumpur that started to look at all the attack sites. Our team is both, I like to say, investigations and direct action. And so the team is made up of, there's a field agent on his first field. There's an analyst who's on his first field assignment. We have the femme fatale costume deceptive agent who hasn't really had a chance to flex any of her skills yet. We have an MIT grad, a field agent with a BA and master's in engineering, who's sort of the technical wonk. And then we got a couple of heavy hitters from the military. We have somebody who's come up through the Army Rangers and has been involved in not only the formation of what's that Special Operations Army group that has some sort of Greek letter in their name. It's not Alpha. It's
Delta Force. Delta Force.
Might be that.
Delta Force.
But has also been responsible for helping train the Secret Service because 1978, 79 is when the Secret Service began ramping up on their counter-assault teams, which are now stationed with the president and vice president wherever they go. Our other heavy hitter is U.S. Marine Force Recon. So we've got some really great assets that have now landed in Kuala Lumpur, and they are now deep into the investigation. It turns out that one of the CIA field staff is missing. I'm sorry, the station chief for KL is missing. There were 2 CIA field agents in training that were passing through Kuala Lumpur, and where both were believed to have been killed. One actually did survive and has gone to ground, and now the party is both trying to find Station Chief KL, and they're trying to find this field agent in training who's hidden. One of the more interesting notes was when they went to the apartment of the station chief, the CIA station chief for KL, and discovered that somebody tried to burst in through his apartment door, only to be met by his reception committee, which was a belt-fed 50 caliber machine gun.
Nice.
Because our boy don't come to play, he comes to hit. And so he apparently shredded the 2 or 3 guys that tried to get in.
Good Lord.
And do him off. And then, and it appears he's made his escape. We have a lot of things going on. And then finally, the way the session ended on Monday night is that they recovered the body of one of the poor unfortunate souls that tried to burst into the station chief's apartment. and he is South African in origin. Not only fully kitted out in South African nutria brown is the color of the fatigues, but he's also armed with a Vector R4, and so there is a South African connection. I don't know if the agents really understood the significance, but they're a little slow. There was also a stack of Krugerrands that they found at one point in the evening that might be somewhat relevant. Hint, hint. And so that's sort of where things wrapped up. So I think we had a good first session. I haven't had a lot of complaints. We had one person who didn't hop in. So I've got an extra character in case somebody is just, lonesome and bored and desperate to be involved somewhere. But that's and it's funny because I got a very high compliment. Mark Greenberg is in the game, and Mark and I were chatting after the game, and he goes, it's so detailed. And I was like,
that's good. A lot of follow-up stuff.
And he's like, he goes, I love this. And I'm like, this is the way my mind runs 24/7. You should not be surprised. So,
well, the last Top Secret campaign I ran, unfortunately, has been many years, but we ran a Mission Impossible style. So I had each of my players have two characters, and I said I don't want them to be the same. So my brother has one of his characters is an ex-pro wrestler who's a heavy, and there's another one is an ex-Vietnam vet who who's a motorcycle guy. So they tried to break it up. So these guys are not the same. And so whatever mission was, they would pick their best guy. And so the whole party, I'd have them all get together. Okay, there's 4 of them. So there's 8 characters. Out of your 8 characters, which 4 do you want to go on this adventure? So they figured it out. It was fun. We ran it Mission Impossible style. It was kind of light. It wasn't real heavy. It wasn't very detailed like Jim's was. But one of my favorite adventures was they had to investigate this white supremacist camp that was basically, and it turned out they were getting support from overseas, and they had a backpack nuke there, and then nobody, they didn't know this going in. They just knew that you're gonna infiltrate, you're gonna go in and do it. So they all pick their characters and they go there, and they get invites to this white supremacist camp. They go up there, and it was just at that point we realized when they drive up to the place that my friend, who's South American, one of his characters is black. As they infiltrate the white supremacist camp.
I saw this movie. It was called Black Klansman.
And so they're sitting there, and I said, do you realize who's in the back? And they all go, oh, shit. So guess who had to wait in the trunk? The trunk of the car. Because they're like, and so anyway, and not only that, he was the communications computer expert. So he's in the trunk of the car having to talk through a walkie-talkie and tell them what to do. It was unintentionally hilarious, but it was actually very suspenseful because at a certain part of the adventure, they effed up and they got captured. So guess who has to come out of the trunk, sneak into the camp, the African-American agent, and somehow infiltrate it and get him out, which he did. It was very suspenseful because if he'd have been caught, it would not. I don't think you would have been able to get rid of it. It would have been like Blazing Saddles. Let's put it that way. You would have been in big trouble. But he managed to get in there and get them and use all his sneak and stealthy skills, and he got in there and got them out. But that was the most memorable part when they drive up to the white supremacist camp, and I said, "Do you realize who's in the back seat with you?" And they go, "Oh, yeah, this isn't going to work, is it?" This is not going to work. So we had.
So answering some questions. We're playing Top Secret, the original TSR version. We're using the rules from the second printing. If you're late to it, we are really truly, we are not coming anywhere near the combat system. It just hurts me and it makes small children cry. But I have a lot of love for Top Secret. This was a game that I had to choose. I had to choose between Top Secret and Gangbusters, and I unfortunately chose Gangbusters. Mistakes were made. Oh. And then I spent years wanting to get Top Secret in the modules and so on. So I finally did. And I looked at Top Secret SI. One of the things that I put to the group of people that we were playing with, my understanding was they wanted a run for a few weeks, which is fine. Mm-hmm. And then somebody was like, well, aren't we doing a one shot? And I was like, okay, well, I can run Monday night as a one shot, but really Monday's the kickoff. because I've got I've got a lot of material, right? I spent a good 8-9 hours like scripting this and storyboarding this, and I know where my inflection points are for how I want each game to end or each session to end. I have character arcs for all the characters and their growth and so on and so forth.
Very cool.
And I have that all sort of storyboarded out. I really sort of sat down and knocked this all out and whatnot. And so I was relieved that it wasn't going to be a one shot, because I was like, well, I've got all this excess material. But I think it's going to be interesting because I talk to people about spy. What do you like about spy movies, right? What do you like about role playing games? What do you like about spy movies and books and so on? And so I think that there is the classic, like Jean Le Carre's, the Bourne movies, the Bourne books. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and Smiley's People are two of the classics of the genre. There's a great book, Our Man in Camelot, that a lot of people here have not read. It was an English paperback. I think it was English paperback. There's a lot of these sorts of things that almost everything Hollywood has ever put in a movie that anybody's seen in the last 40 years has been stolen from all the really great spy novels. And Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the recent movie remake, is a great movie, but it was also originally a television show from England with Alec Guinness.
Alec Guinness. Oh yeah, great.
Yes,
very great.
And so you have to walk a line, because I actually asked people. I said, what do you want? Do you want to be direct action, i.e., I'm going to kill everybody? Do you want to be an investigator? And you have to balance that, right? So mercifully, my direct action people weren't getting a little twitchy on Monday night, but they also know that it's coming, right? It's coming, and they're gonna be there to do some things. But
I was gonna say, Jim. One thing I liked about the second edition was the combat is infinitely easier to do.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not terrible. It's really easy to do, and I did like the areas of knowledge. That's
great idea, brilliant idea.
Because
and I've told everybody their character is level 8, and fill in your areas of knowledge. I did stats. I gave them backgrounds, and then I walked away. And I said, here are your character sheets. Fill it out. Go nuts.
Well, because Merle wanted to put areas of knowledge in the original rules, and it was already so full that what he did was he added later on an issue of the Dragon magazine. There's a couple of issues where they talk about areas of knowledge, but he wanted to do that. He liked the areas of knowledge idea, and they really went with that in the second edition. There's a lot of areas of knowledge.
And again, I think we talked about lazy DMs. We talked about lazy con games. Knocking out characters for people to play, ask them what they want to do, then give them a character that's along those lines, but give them just the skeleton, and then let them hang everything else on. Let them figure out the specifics. Let them figure out the quirks. Our agent that went to MIT has decided that the only way that this person has the BA and the MA at their age is because they have ADHD. Okay, great. ADHD, hooray. And so the person played that character a little strongly on Monday night, and I was like, you can take it down just a little bit. It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. But what we have to do, what we really have to do is, if you're going to run a game, you have to give people a good time. You have to give people a story that's got some depth. You have to give people a reason to want to be there. You have to give all these folks a reward for being a part of the experience, and you have to give everybody equal time, right? When you have, I'll come back to that. When you have 5 people in a game, you got to make sure that one person doesn't dominate the game. You have to make sure that everybody's a part of it. Good chunk of Monday night, the party was split a couple of different ways. We had folks at the embassy trying to run down, going through the Kuala Lumpur station chief's office. We had folks that went to the hospital to try to speak to American citizens that had been wounded in the attacks. I gave them a lot of information and a lot of leads to run down. And they didn't get to everything on Monday night, but they got to a lot of the key pieces that I wanted. But I did want to have that. I did want to have that big reveal that when they finally got to the state, and I, a couple of different times, the head of the FBI forensic squad that beat them to Kuala Lumpur is like, you need to see the station chief's apartment. And they didn't take the nibble at first. And then I hinted again. And then they finally got there. And the Malaysian police and the Malaysian army have sealed off the entire floor of the apartment building. And they didn't quite get that until they got to the end of the hallway, and they saw where the guy went through an entire 100-round belt of 50 cal ammo and reloaded. And not only did he blow out the door and the door across the hallway and the glass, but there was literally a sea of dried blood because the guys knocking at his door were not ready for what came their way. And that was to be one of these, I had said, the station chief is a career CIA employee. He's well loved within the agency. He's had a great post-World War II career. He's spent his last 5 years in Kuala Lumpur before he's getting ready to retire. And again, you have to craft your NPCs on things you know. And so my parents were stationed in Kuala Lumpur. My father was stationed in Kuala Lumpur in that period of time. He was part of a joint UK-US operation that was researching malaria through the Army Medical Corps and the English Army Medical Corps, and he knew the station chief in KL, and this guy was unbelievably successful at finding out the secrets of Japanese businessmen. How was he successful? He provided the bar all the Japanese businessmen hung out in. He provided 3 cases of Jack Daniels every month to the bartender at no cost, as long as he could record and listen to the conversations of the Japanese businessmen.
Oh, yeah.
And when the guy has genuine Jack Daniels at a reasonable cost, would you like to guess what the Matsushita and Sony manufacturers reps are going to drink until they fall down? It would be Jack Daniels. And literally, he got 3 cases of Jack Daniels shipped to him via diplomatic bags every month. Month.
It's really interesting you say do what you know, because I remember running a. Do you remember the game Daredevils that came out in the 80s?
Yes.
Yeah. So we played
which was like Gangbusters, but not.
Right. Well, it was pulpier.
Yes.
Right? So we had a gang of so. I was sitting there looking, okay, what kind of plots can I use? I want to make this really pulpy. So what did I do? I had this shelf full of Doc Savage adventures, the old Bantam paperbacks. I pulled 2 or 3 off there. I just ran them through the plots. I basically, because the Doc Savage adventures are pretty much A, go to B, go to, Doc gets attacked. He goes to, Kuala Lumpur. Then they chase him to, Georgia, United States. So they go along this little path. And they always have a gimmick. The bad guy always has a gimmick. It's either a freeze ray or a disappearing ray or something like that. And I just took the plots of Doc Savage. I would reread the book real quick and just rewrite the whole thing. And they were like, these are the cool. Did you think about these? No, actually, Kenneth Robinson did 50 years ago. But we're gonna
Lester Dent.
Yeah,
his real name was Lester Dent.
Actually, Lester Dent. By the way, great pulp writer. He wrote a lot of espionage stuff too. He was a huge espionage writer.
Yes.
So this is all.
He created a metal detector before anybody else did to look for treasure. Dent was a great guy. Like he was the Robert Howard of pulp novels.
And he used to pump out 2 novels a month. But when he got rich, because he got rich off this, he hired ghostwriters. So he's employing ghostwriters, and he gets the check, and he gives them a percentage. I mean, this guy made a ton of money in his life. He actually lost it 2 or 3 times too, because he would invest in really shaky endeavors to find, sunken ships and stuff. But no, he's a character. Lester Dent's a character. He's great. But
I would beg people, if you ever want to read the best Doc Savage books, the first 2 years of Doc Savage are spectacular.
Absolutely. They're great.
The Sargasso Ogre and
Thousand-Headed Man
Land
and
of Terror.
Land of Terror, they fight dinosaurs. Now, but I will also say this though: the Doc Savage series ran to I think almost the 50s. The last couple of years were not fantastic adventures. They were espionage. Espionage adventures where Doc and 1 or 2 of it, because he had these 5 operatives. Well, they cut most of them out towards the end of the series. He would go with 1 or 2 of the operatives, and they are pure espionage. And so if you wanted something that is basically a top secret-ish espionage adventure set in the 40s, these are perfect for that, because that's what they were. They got rid of all the fantastic, crazy villains. It was like a totally different series, and it turned out Lester Dent, being a pulp writer, would recycle stories. So he would take an espionage story and turn it to a Doc Savage story, vice versa. He turned a Doc Savage story to espionage story, and that made it easier without the crazy villains that could, levitate or fire bolts from their fingers, or whatever. But yes, so I would use that, because I knew that if I took a Doc Savage story, these guys it's pulpy enough, but it's also, there's lots of action, there's investigation, it has everything you need. There's world travel, you're going all over the world, you're doing these fun things, and they had a blast with that game. One summer, that's what we did. We played Daredevils for one summer. Everybody had a pulpy type character, or a sidekick. I remember my brother wanted to play a sidekick. He was Smitty the driver. And all he did, he said, my guy just drives. So he knows how to fly an Aerojet, or what do they call those things? The old helicopter.
Autogyro.
Yeah, autogyro. He knows how to do it. So he was the guy that would get him from place to place. And everybody else had a gimmick. They would do something. But that was, like I said, we just did Doc Savage books. It was great. It worked out perfectly.
All right, we can't invoke Doc Savage without me talking about this briefly. So there's a lot of stuff that about Doc Savage that was essentially lifted for other heroes, superheroes. Superman has the Fortress of Solitude. Well, Doc had his fortress before Superman. And so the first Doc Savage novel came out in 1933, first pulp novel. It ran monthly for years and years and years. But every Doc Savage book had a throwaway villain. They were a one and done.
Right. Except for one, and that was John Sunlight. Oh yeah.
And John Sunlight is a level of evil that few can comprehend. And when we first meet John Sunlight, he's on a ship. He's been a Russian prisoner. He staged a revolt, and he and the other prisoners have managed to commandeer a ship, and they're lost in the Arctic. And he is as bad a human being as is possible. And when they land on this deserted island, when they land on this island with this small tribe of Inuit or Eskimo, whatnot, there's a big blue glass dome. And when he points to it, everybody's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see anything. And then one day he sees one of them going in and out, and he figures out how to get into it. And he spends a couple of weeks in it by himself. And nobody else knows how to get in, and nobody else knows what's going on. And not only has he found Doc's Fortress of Solitude, he has found all the weapons that Doc has confiscated over the years that are too awful to be in the hands of humanity. And not only does he take them, he starts to get his revenge. And Doc ends up facing John Sunlight twice. He fights them in the Fortress of Solitude, and then, much to his horror, John Sunlight returns in The Devil Genghis. And these are two of the best pulp novels, because the moment that Doc encounters one of the victims of John Sunlight and he realizes what's happened, John Sunlight has used a weapon that literally causes the guy's atoms to essentially stop motion, and he evaporates. And when Doc realizes what's in play, he goes to the Fortress of Solitude. He finds out that everything's been looted, and this just diametrically increases the amount of concern, because John Sunlight is the one person in the world who should not have the forbidden toys of the Fortress of Solitude.
And it's a great read. It actually sucks that John Sunlight didn't come back for a few extra bad. I mean, they actually. So Devil Genghis, because I love these two books, he actually dies kind of one of those deaths you don't really see.
It's like an off-screen death, right? The body's thrown up in the air on the spears.
So I kept thinking, Little Bad Mike reading these in the 70s, maybe
one more time,
John Sunlight could come back. This would be so great. But yeah, that was a classic. Now, what's interesting about I know we got off on a hilarious subject because this is something Jim and I obviously like, but Will Murray, who is probably the greatest chronicler of Lester Dent, anything Lester Dent did, he restarted the series back in the 90s.
Yes.
And he took a lot of books that Lester wrote scripts for but didn't finish, and he would kind of do his own little takes on it too. His books are pretty good. They're not quite as good as Lester Dent's, but he throws a lot of more kind of mod. Because look, Lester Dent was he was successful, but he was a pulp writer. He was not a great writer. He wrote fast and he wrote furiously, and he didn't. But if you ever read William Murray's stuff, and he wrote about, I think one's called The Frightened Fish. There's 5 or 6 of them. They're really good, and they're actually better written than the Lester Dent books in terms of spelling and grammar and the way he actually took his time. He wasn't pumping out 2 novels a month. So if you get a chance, those might actually be easier to find, the Will Murray ones and the old Lester Dent ones. But he also wrote something. There's a book called The Red Spider that he wrote.
And unpublished. No, The Red Spider was Dent's novel that he had written, but had never had published. It was found in Dent's Effects in 1979 or.
And the reason they didn't publish it was because it was too spy. It was a spy book with Doc Savage in it, and his editor at the time said, "No, we need Doc Savage doing crazy shit and fighting guys with anti-matter rays." And so it was shelved for whatever 30, 50, 40 years. But The Red Spider is if you want an espionage-y, kind of a spy novel set in the 40s. Red Spider is it's got a femme fatale in it. It's a really, really good book. But
July 1979.
Wow.
I
remember buying that. I buy it on the shelf.
I got it. Yep. I got it. I had it pre-ordered. Everybody was excited about this. This was number 95 in the Bantam reprints.
Yep.
And it's a very different,
very different.
Doc when he's young in the novels from 33, 34. He's very confident, he knows what his abilities are. And it's very interesting that as Doc grows older, like a lot of guys in middle age, he has doubts. He has his moments. And there's a bunch of these Doc Savage novels where, Dent was a product of the times. And so Dent realized that not only do you have Doc and you've got his 5 helpers, right? There's Rennie and Ham and Monk, Long Tom and Johnny.
Yep.
But then he also introduced Doc's cousin, Pat, Patricia.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly you had a female character. And there's a Doc Savage novel that is told from strictly Pat Savage's perspective. My favorite Doc Savage novel is the one where he decides, I'm tired of all this shit. I'm going to take a break. And he pretends to be somebody named Henry Peace, who loafs around for most of the adventure while all his assistants are trying to solve the problem.
Right.
And Dent had a wicked sense of humor. At one point, Pat checks into a hotel under the name Enola Immel, which is backwards for Leave Me Alone.
Leave Me Alone, yes.
Leave Me Alone. Great stuff. There's no licensed RPG for Doc Savage.
The story
property.
Well, the story about it was Condé Nast they bought a lot of pulp characters. I think at one point they owned the Shadow, Avenger, Spider, and this is really so. After the Doc Savage movie came out in '76 and kind of flopped, they published all the omnibus books. They gave the rights to Bantam. They sat on the property and didn't do God's awful shit.
Nothing.
And nothing. Okay. So when people would come to them,
something, I'll be right back.
When people would come to them and say, "We want to do a new Doc Savage series, we want to do a TV series, whatever," they would quote a ridiculous licensing price for something that's based on a pulp fiction novel, fiction character that came out in the 30s and 40s and 50s. They would quote a ridiculous price. Nobody ever paid it. And Condé Nast was perfectly happy about sitting on the property and never using it. It really sucked. And so that's why you don't have a lot of people who know about Doc Savage anymore, because those idiots.
Wasn't there a Vertigo comic book?
They did license it. They did license it to DC. Licensed it. Marvel licensed him for a while, but their licensing fees were so effing high they couldn't maintain it. So what happened eventually was happy thing that happened was it's gone into public domain now. So now you're seeing a lot of Doc Savage books being published by third-party publishers because they're able to. It's gone into public domain. I didn't think
it had gone to public domain.
It actually has, yeah. If you look, there's third-party publishers that are actually putting out some of Doc Savage books. And what just sucks is there's just not a big market for pulp heroes anymore. It really bites that they
let it die.
Yeah, they did.
They really did. Let it die. And I okay, so I'm gonna do show and tell here briefly. I'll have to open up. I'll show two things then, and then I'll okay. So I'm like 9 years old, and that's when I discovered Doc Savage. And I started tearing through all the paperbacks. There was a great used paperback store in my hometown. I bought them all the Bantam reprints. So this is my copy of The Man of Bronze.
Oh, look at that Bama cover.
The illustrated. This is the illustrated book, illustrated by Maurice Whitman. So this is the story of Man of
very
Bronze.
Cool, yeah.
Right? So I can't tell you. So this was March of '79. Then this is my hardcover for Man of Bronze.
There was four. There were six of those, right? 4 or 6.
Yeah, Whitman did 6. Yep. I have a whole set of those.
Yeah, those are good.
And so I must have read that. I can't even begin to count how many times I read that. And the movie is shit. Let's not kid ourselves. The movie is one of the worst things that's ever been made.
Not Ron Eli's biggest, happiest moment there, unfortunately.
No, it's pretty sad. But a few years ago, I did break down, and I bought the only thing movie-wise that. So I didn't even know this existed. It's the Ron Ely Doc Savage statuette.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Signed by Ron Ely.
Signed? Oh, my God, dude. Come on.
It's signed by Ron Ely, and I've never opened it, but I'm going to open it now because we need to see the statue. Okay, here we go. It's the Doc Savage
look at that. Look at that torn,
and all of his Ron Ely glory.
The torn shirt, the pecs. Oh, yes.
And on the back, it says copy 1975 Warner Brothers. But then I just saw this.
Uh-oh.
This is on the bottom.
Oh,
Ron,
no.
Please sign this one to Terry. Thanks.
Oh, how wonderful. Wow. What a great providence there.
I don't know who Terry is, but thank you, Terry. I have my own autographed Ron Ely Man of Bronze statue.
Now, Jim, we're the same. We're kind of the same ages. So I also got into Doc Savage in the 50s, and I picked up the Bantam paperbacks. So there was no better covers in the entire paperback industry than the Bama Man of Bronze Doc Savage covers. Those are the most evocative, amazing.
I'll fight you.
Oh, who? Throw it! Come on!
I'm gonna fight you, and I have to get my evidence to fight you. I'll be right back.
Oh, jeez!
But the Bama covers are absolutely incredible. Every single one. Doc Savage is wearing a long sleeve shirt that's torn up, and he's fighting the Mystic Mullah, the Sargasso Ogre, the Invisible Venus, and he just looks like he's just the most ripped, kick-ass dude ever with his torn shirt. This dude has been in a fight, and so every Bama cover has Doc on the cover with his ripped up shirt, looking like a badass. And so that when you're a kid, you see that, you're just like, oh. And the colors and everything would pop out on you, and you had to grab that 35-cent paperback off the shelf, because no matter what was going on in there, you had to read what Doc was doing in that torn up shirt, whatever he's fighting.
Okay.
So show me your contender.
So let me just explain something real quick. So all the Bantam reprint covers were either Bama or
Boris did.
Boris.
Yeah.
But they were, like Mike was talking about, there's a very stereotypical style to them. But the original illustrator of Doc Savage was a guy named William Baumhofer.
Mm-hmm.
And Baumhofer did most of the covers for the 191 Doc Savage novels. All those paintings are, for the most part, lost. I believe that there are 5 or 6 that are known to exist in collections somewhere. So Harlan Ellison, the science fiction writer, Harlan made the jump from hack science fiction writer, publishing stuff in magazines and having some success with books, to television. And Harlan will be the first person to tell you, if he could, but he's dead. Harlan would be the first person to tell you that, there's the money you make as a writer, and there's the money that you make as a television writer. And as soon as Harlan started writing for television, Harlan had money like he had never had before. And it was great being Harlan Ellison because you were a guy that hit all the deadlines, and he wrote fast, and he wrote a lot of stuff, and he made a shit ton of money in the late 60s, early 70s. So if you watched Logan's Run, the TV show that they adapted from the movie, he has an episode in that. But he wrote consistently for both the movie industry and the television industry. Why am I talking about all this? So Harlan Ellison's house, he bought this big house on a big piece of land, and he began filling it with all this stuff from science fiction and fantasy from his youth, and that he thought was collectible and so on. And that includes one of William Baumhofer's original Doc Savage paintings. Of the 5 or 6 of the 181 that existed, one of those was the cover for the very first one, The Man of Bronze. So let me get the picture ready. You're going to want to go to me here in a second, but hold on. Let me get this all sorted up and ready so you can see it. Because I got to pull the camera back.
I'm trying to be on top of things. I do it wrong.
Get ready. Hold on. Because I'm going to hold this up.
I don't know if I can get any more. I don't know if I can get any more excited, but Jim's about to push
excited, I might have to.
I don't even have any Viagra here, and I'm more excited than I've been in years. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh,
so
that's
Graffiti
sweet.
Graffiti Designs did a print shot from Harlan Ellison's painting.
Look at that torn
from the Harlan Ellison collection. This is the original Man of Bronze cover by William Baumhofer from 1933.
Wow.
Now, this isn't the original. This is just a print.
Yeah.
The Graffiti Designs offered a print of every single one of the William Baumhofer covers that existed.
How sweet!
And this is the first one.
Wow.
So I got it framed up and matted, and for years and years and years, this is what hung wherever I lived.
That is amazing. Yeah, and Gary is correct. I will not repeat what Gary just said, but he's absolutely correct. But I tell you what, I got mad because the older I got, I realized in the back of the Doc Savage Banter novels, you could order the Bama posters on the covers, and those are so hard to find now. Because why, Jim? Because
impossible.
Every little kid bought them, tacked it on his wall, and it got all torn up, and they threw it away when they went to college or whatever. And those are just so hard to find. I would love to have some of those Bama covers.
Okay, somebody asked how tall the Doc Savage figure is. Let me see. And they only did one figure. They only did a Doc figure. They didn't do any action figures. They didn't do any other statues for any of the other for any of his assists. They didn't do Monk or Ham or Rennie or anybody else. But I don't have my.
Well, it's just because the movie bombed, Jim. The movie bombed.
Oh, I know. I think it's 8 inches. I think it's about 8 inches. I'm sorry. I'll say it's 8 inches, but we're men, so it could be closer to 5.5.
Yeah, you're exaggerating a little bit.
But there you go.
It's a little cold outside, Yeah, that's awesome. That is. I was so in the 70s. I was that, and I would buy the Shadow paperbacks. The Avenger. I love the Avenger. Spider paperbacks were hard to find. And honestly, he's not a hero I liked when I was a kid. Now, when I got older, I appreciated him more because you got to understand about the Spider. He was a psychotic. He was psychotically insane. And when he would do it at Pulp Adventure, he'd kill everyone. And I thought that was weird as a kid because I thought the good guy shouldn't be killing everyone. Now, the older I got, I appreciated more his sense of psychoticness. But yeah, that was my youth, man. When I was a kid, I'd go to the store and pick up those reprint paperbacks of those guys: Shadow, Avenger, Doc Savage, Spider. Every once in a while, G8. I didn't really like G8 a lot, though. His stuff was boring. I thought their stuff was boring, but I would pick that stuff up, and I just used to devour that. That was definitely that was in my wheelhouse when I was a kid. Was that stuff?
And the Avenger. We mentioned the Avenger. They used the same pseudonym for Lester Dent for the Avenger books, but it wasn't Dent writing it.
Totally different writer. It's a German.
Kenneth Robinson. But it has the great start where a husband and his wife and his kids get on a plane, and he goes to the bathroom on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And when he comes out of the bathroom, his wife and children are gone, and nobody on the plane remembers that they were there.
They act like it never happened. Exactly.
And they act like they had never boarded the plane. The flight attendants, the plane crew, the other people on the plane, nobody, they just were never there. And he has a meltdown. He has a complete psychotic break. And he's, am I imagining this and so on? And then you discover, no, you weren't imagining it. Literally everybody on the plane was involved in the absolutely hideous murder of your wife and children, thrown out of a door of a plane at 12,000, 18,000 feet.
Because they were hiding something on the plane they didn't want anybody to know about. They didn't have time to kill him, and plus he's very capable. He was in a jungle adventure, and so they were kind of like, yeah, we're just gonna say he's crazy. But do you remember what happens to him on the plane? They hit him in the head with the fire extinguisher, turns his hair prematurely white, and his skin becomes just like no emotion. He has no lines, and it's just
all the nerve endings in his face go dead. And he can twist and mold his face to take on any disguise.
Only in Pulp Fiction could this happen. Only in Pulp Fiction could that. Yes,
and he's got two things to wreak vengeance with. He has a small caliber gun and a knife.
And you remember their names?
Ice and
it was Mike and Ike.
Mike and Ike.
And so he had a dagger, and this is another Pulp Fiction thing. He didn't like to kill his bad guys. So what he would do is, he was such a good shot with his gun, Jim. He used to bounce the bullet off their head, because
that's right.
Once again, only in Pulp Fiction could that ever happen.
No,
But you don't shoot him; you just knock him out by
I had a governor in New York that thought we could do that a couple of decades ago.
I just want to point out. The action poses of Ron Ely on my box.
Oh my God!
Look at that. Isn't that just great? It's Ron Ely.
Oh, it's such a terrible movie. Such a terrible movie.
It is such an awful movie.
It's so sad that it killed that franchise, because Pulp Fiction is one of those genres that has been, it's just a throwaway genre, unfortunately, even in role playing. There's some good role playing Pulp Fiction. I know Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds is very pulpy. That's a very pulpy RPG. But yeah, it's always had kind of a second, third tier status in the RPG world.
Okay.
Owlbear. Like I said, Daredevils was good. What was it? Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes. That was
from Flying Buffalo. I got that.
Yeah, that was a really good one too. There was a few, but it just never caught on. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those genres that it just never got the publicity, and I don't think necessarily a lot of people were interested in it. But man, it is such an overlooked and great genre. And look, when the Rocketeer movie came out, the Rocketeer is a pure pulp fiction, and it was great. I love that movie, but it never really led to anything. And the Shadow movie was
Dave Stevens' masterpiece,
absolutely,
and it was just
yeah.
So, it's hard to watch.
Yeah,
I love the movie. Don't get me wrong, I love the movie, but. And it had the same director, Terry Johnston, as Captain America: The First Avenger. And if you really want to see a movie with somebody who appreciates the 1940s and all the architecture and getting everything right, Terry Johnston does an amazing job of that. Both The Rocketeer and the Captain America: First Avenger.
Yeah. And I like that. The funny thing is, when I first saw Captain America: First Avenger, I didn't like it as much as I do now. I've seen it 2 or 3 times.
I love it.
I really appreciate it more now than I did when I first saw it, because I thought they took a lot of liberties with history, but then I realized by the second time I saw what they were doing, that they didn't care about history. This is about Marvel Comics history, not about real world history, and I appreciate it a lot more. And I think they do a lot of really good things in that movie. Matter of fact, I think I appreciate the Captain America MCU movies almost more than any of the other movies in the series. There, I think the Civil War movie is good. The absolute spy thriller one they did, which is incredible, with Robert Redford playing a heavy, which was great, because he doesn't get to play bad guys enough. That was great. So yeah, they did some really good job work with that. But yeah, if you haven't seen The Rocketeer, go see The Rocketeer. It's a family movie. It's a great pulpy, adventure movie. I mean, maybe the special effects don't hold up 100% now, but it's a really fun movie. I really liked that movie a lot when I was younger.
The Rocketeer is just so much fun. I'm such a fan of it.
I miss the pulps, man. I miss those pulps. I used to love that Pulp Fiction.
We are nearing the witching hour. Is there anything that we need to cover?
Oh yes, I did. I thank you for reminding. By the way, I mentioned pulps. I'm going through my pulp collection looking for stuff to sell. Just by the way, July 1940. I have a lot of weird tales too. I like Jim. I dabble in other genres. Pulp Fiction's a huge genre, so I've got a bunch of. But no, I wanted to switch. I'm going to LongCon tomorrow. I'll be there with Bill Barch, Greg Gillespie, Gary Oliver's there. A bunch of our friends over there. It's kind of like North Texas East because it's in Longview, about 2.5 hours east of Dallas, and it's usually the second weekend in November. We have a blast there. If you're in Texas or you're thinking about ever coming someday, you will have. If you like North Texas, you'll have a great time. It's half the people that go are North Texas alumni. The other half are weird East Texas swamp people. So you're going to have a good time. Eddie and Matt, who come to our convention every year, they run the convention. I look forward to having a blast. Ty's going to be there. Ty Beer. I mean, it's just like I said. Everybody bring the poster from Jim. What poster?
Huh?
Please bring the poster. He's asking me. So I'll talk to him later. Bring the poster from Jim.
Oh, the poster I gave your wife.
Oh,
the BattleTech poster for Gary.
No, I'm not going to bring it, Gary. It's at the warehouse. I'm not going to the warehouse to bring it. I left all that at the warehouse, so it's at the warehouse. So, no, Gary, no. You have to go to the warehouse to get it. Anyway, LongCon's great. I'll be going there tomorrow. I just want to let everybody know about that. If you get a chance in the future, check it out. It's really you fly into Dallas. You either rent a car, you grab a ride with myself or Gary or somebody, and we drive you over there. That's what Bill Barsh is a mooch. He just drives Gary every year because he's lazy. And he's cheap. He doesn't want to rent a car. But
so somebody keeps asking about the Giant, so I'll just answer this real quick. So the Marauder Giant, Games Workshop, there's a Giant that's well known. It's metal and it is about that tall. All right. So this is one of my ubiquitous Yeti cups that I'm always drinking out of. So everybody knows how big it is. That's about how tall the Marauder Giant is.
Wow.
It is impossible to cast. It is just a beast to cast. It tore out molds everywhere.
Oh.
So the Marauder Giant, not only is it enormously tall, it came with 5 different heads. It came with victims. Having a Giant is difficult to find something with all the pieces. And there was one that had popped up on the Old School Miniatures or one of the trading pages that I commented on it. And so what I need to do is I need to confess, I don't have one, I have 2.
Wow.
And I have one that's loose that I bought from a friend of mine in the UK who also worked for Games Workshop and is well known. And then I have a second one, and I have a funny story. I bought it, and it is in the shrink. It's about, I don't think we know of another one that's in the shrink. There might be one other. It might be one other. But I got it in the shrink, and I was flying with it to get home, and I actually took it as a carry-on. And of course, this means that it had to go through the scanner, and yes, it immediately got sent to the
beep, beep,
deeper inspection. And I've got it in a bag. It's in a box in a bag, like I'm hand carrying this. And I pull it out and I said, please, I do not want to damage the shrink wrap. You're welcome to x-ray it, but please. And the guy's like, no, I get it. And he puts it in the x-ray machine. And as soon as it comes up, as soon as he sees what's on the label and he puts it in the machine to scan it, he goes, oh my God, this is Warhammer. Like, I'm good. I'm safe. And so, no, I didn't. No, it's not a Citadel Giant. It's a Marauder Giant. And the Marauder Giant is
got the bro hug
giant one that we're talking about. So.
You got a bro hug from him, man. All right, Warhammer.
Woot. Anyway, so that's why I keep getting Giant.
What else do we have? Anything else, Eric? Before we go
I think we did pretty good.
Yeah. I just want to let everybody know about LongCon. I'll be there this weekend, so I'm really excited about it. It's going to be fun. We're gonna drink, and we will also celebrate the end of the political season there because my God, as Jim said, it's been 16 years of election time squished into 8 months, and I'm so done with it. I'm so so done with it. I can't wait to celebrate and have a good time and not have to worry about the bullshit for another.
Yes, just remember this, right? Like, we're still your neighbors, we're still your friends, we're still gonna roll dice. It's all over and done, and we all just go forward, and that's what matters more than anything else.
You know, my group that we play we actually played last weekend until we're not gonna play again until probably into December. We only play once a month. We have people from every political stripe in that group, and you know what we don't do? We don't let politics divide us, and we just play. We sit down and play. We may throw a few jokes here and there, you know, about something, you know, before we play, but we don't. That's just we sit down to play D&D, and that's what we do. Our group, we sit down, we play D&D, and once we sit down and start playing the characters, there's no politics involved, and that's the way the gaming should be. Just have fun with your friends. You don't have to lose friends over that stuff. Just have fun with your friends. You know, don't be that way. Just have a good time, and like I said, we do that. That's one of the reasons. You know,
holy shit, Mike.
Oh, yes,
Mike. Oh my God, I've got to. You got to share this link. Condé Nast has a store where you can buy Doc Savage covers.
No way! The posters?
I shit you not.
Send me the link.
I'm putting the link now so it can be shared with everybody. Oh my God!
There's two links there, Eric. There's the Wikipedia link.
There's the cover for Fortress of Solitude, Bronze.
Look at those.
Oh my God. Stop. I can only get so erect.
I may have got, they're $100, but you know what? It's not too terrible.
Look at
not
those.
Too terrible.
Holy crap.
Oh, those are beautiful. God, those are freaking beautiful. Including the one that the original Man of Bronze one that you just showed us the picture of.
Yeah.
Boy, they picked some of the best ones too. They picked some of the best ones. Those are great. Those are the bomb.
My
ones.
God.
Oh, those are good.
And there's Fortress of Solitude. Oh, the Black Spot, the Time Terror. It doesn't get better than that, boys. Doesn't get better than that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, that's a great way to end the show. The folks, grab those links.
Go forth and buy posters of Doc Savage.
You know, listen. So I'm going to thank Jared again for joining us.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he reached out to us. Don't show half-naked men on my screen.
Ron Ely's watching.
Yeah, and we yeah. I thought we had that was we did what we could. There's some stuff we didn't bring up, but a lot of we weren't going to sit there and say, well, this guy said this about you, and this guy said this about you, because all somebody would have to do is just say, well, that's not true, and then the conversation. So we tried to talk about things that would require further answers than just no.
And we wanted a conversation, honestly, and I think the two of you and Jared had that, and I think that really. And listen, those of you in the live stream, in the chat, you know, if you had a question that I thought was relevant that should be brought up, I made sure Mike and Jim knew about it, but I wasn't gonna, litter up the screen with it. If they couldn't get to it, if it wasn't applicable, it wasn't. But thank you all. Now tomorrow night on this channel, on a vlog of many things, on Tabletop Tap Room, you can watch what you want to watch. The one and only Ken Whitman is going to allegedly, theoretically, quite possibly be the guest, and is saying that they'll answer questions, and answer my question. I'm going to withhold judgment. Okay, I'm going to withhold judgment. We shall see.
Hold on. I got it wrong. It was the Citadel Giant, not the Marauder Giant. I sent the link, but I'm sorry. As long as we're talking about Ken Whitman, hold on. I'm going to have to raise my eyebrow of incredulity.
You have one? I have like two.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know. But hey, listen. Who knows? Maybe his diagnosis that could only be diagnosed after death was now.
I look forward to this. This is going to be interesting. I won't be able to watch it. I'll have to watch it later because of being long gone. But I'm interested because look, there's different ways this could be a redemption tour, this could be an apology tour, this could be I did nothing wrong tour. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm interested to see what happens. So
your guess is as good as mine.
No clue how this might roll. So I'm very interested. This should do really well. This should be interesting.
Folks, again, thank you all. Thanks to Mike, Jim. As always, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll this dice, roll them well. Live stream tomorrow. Live stream on Friday. Live stream on Saturday. My God.
Busy man. Now the post-election busy man, Eric is. Yes.
Oh God.